The front desk staff told him, you should go somewhere else. Facts are gonna inform, but feelings are gonna move. You all are taking me places that I had no idea that this existed. And we're like, that's Anaheim. Like, you're literally listening to headliner comedians, and there is a car on a lift right next to you, right? We are extraordinarily humble and fortunate to have it in our backyard. It's probably the most marketable attraction in the entire world. A lot of people don't view Anaheim as cool, right?
All right, Event Planner Confessions crew. So excited. We're here today with Scott Oklin, who's the Chief Marketing Officer of Visit Anaheim, really the official destination marketing organization and visitor bureau for Anaheim and the surrounding Orange County region. And I know you have a really interesting background, Scott. You've kind of spanned all aspects: travel, entertainment, business development, corporate sponsorships, sales leadership. I'm sure I'm missing something else. But would love to just, have you introduce yourself to our listeners.
Yeah, well, first off, thank you to both of you for having me today, and excited for the conversation. So I joined the Visit Anaheim team about 2 years ago. It'll be my 2-year anniversary in September. Amazing team, amazing destination, which I know we'll talk more about today. But yeah, my background, I spent about a decade with Travelzoo. For those that might not be super familiar with Travelzoo, it's basically a platform that allows people to live their best life. So everything from hotel offers to cruise lines, airfare deals. And part of my role there, I did oversee our sales organization as well as our marketing efforts. And a huge piece of our business was working with clients on the DMO and tourism board side. So I saw everything and worked with clients ranging from Nebraska to Malta to Singapore and kind of everything in between. It was really kind of fascinating for me in that role to just see the different strategies that a lot of these DMOs and tourism boards were taking. Everything from upper funnel to lower funnel, and Travelzoo is a small piece of that pie. So now for me to be able to come in and kind of own that 360-degree solution for our organization and destination has been really exciting, and definitely with the trajectory that Anaheim's on in general. Prior to Travelzoo, I worked in the professional sports space and corporate sponsorships. Worked for the Washington Commanders. Worked for another live ticketing platform called Gold Star, which feels like many moons ago. But really, really fun backdrop to kind of help prepare me for this role and everything that's going on in Anaheim.
That's awesome. The Commanders are right in our backyard, so very familiar, and just really excited to have this conversation with you about, the new brand position at Anaheim as a city unscripted, a destination built around expression, energy, community play. That goes beyond the unexpected itinerary. So I think it's a really interesting spin. So super excited to dive into this conversation.
Awesome. Yeah, it's been a labor of love.
Isn't it all? It's such a process. Because I know you guys have been kind of going through your own process, as Anaheim is such a destination that people already know so much about. So really, what made this kind of the right time to have a refresh and a rebrand moment for Visit Anaheim?
Yeah, it's funny. I've bounced around the country during my career. I've lived in Miami, I lived in DC, lived in LA. And when I lived in LA, I'd spent some time down in Orange County, but never enough to know specifically Anaheim beyond Disney. So when the conversation started to evolve with me taking on the role of CMO here, I started to kind of immerse myself, obviously, in what was going on in the destination. And if you spend 2 seconds with Mike Waterman, our president and CEO, you're going to get so jazzed up and fired up with what the trajectory of Anaheim ultimately is. And so I think where we started to approach this conversation over what does a rebrand or a refresh of the destination look like, the initial conversation really started to evolve around this idea that, well, we've got all of these amazing things already here, let alone what's coming and coming down the pipeline. We just maybe need to do a bit of a better job at amplifying that story. And so the term that I've been using is kind of this idea of Disney and. Disneyland is our crown jewel. We are extraordinarily humble and fortunate to have it in our backyard. It's probably the most marketable attraction in the entire world. And so by no stretch of the imagination are we doing anything to market around it, right? It's the emotional anchor and always will be for Anaheim. And I think that our mindset has really kind of started to evolve into this notion of how do we allow for the icons to bring people in, And then how do we show them everything around those icons to get them to stay an extra night, to get them to come back, to go back and talk to their family and their friends and say, hey, there were these scripted moments that we knew that we were walking into, but there were these unscripted ideas and experiences that I had no idea even were on the planet, let alone in Anaheim. And I think I've been calling it the underbelly of Anaheim. And that's where I think that people have really kind of shown this new energy and enthusiasm around it. And then you kind of transition that into this whole other world that's happening with the development of OC Vibe and Disneyland Forward and these hotel projects that are taking place. And you match those two things up. And I think it was us just really needing to evolve to match that energy and excitement.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think it's great that you've kind of emphasized we're not taking away from these icons. We're really just building a bigger umbrella to bring people into and under. And I think for our audience, for event planners specifically, I would love to uncover from you, what did this really unveil from a rebrand perspective to market to those event planners, those people coming in for the conventions that are looking to book multi-year? How did that all evolve, and what was that kind of conversation behind the scenes about?
Yeah, so I'll take one step back and then I'll take two steps forward. But the one step back is we really rooted all of this in data and research and being very methodical with that approach. We brought in an agency by the name of Collider Lab to help kind of set the stage and really diving into the areas. Sometimes you're going to go through research and you're going to hear some things that you don't necessarily want to hear about your destination, but those nuggets, I think, are really where where the magic happens. And so with that, right, a lot of what Collider uncovered was, it was no big surprise to us, but it's roughly like 9 in 10 people know Anaheim, right? So like we never had an awareness problem. So when we're talking to whether it's an event planner, whether it's a leisure visitor, like take your pick, most people know Anaheim. I think that where we started to see a drop off in that quote unquote funnel, if you will, was from, we had it kind of mapped out, aided awareness, consideration, intent. So how many people know about you? How many out of that, how many people would consider booking a meeting or a convention? And then out of that, how many people would actually show intent to do that? And the awareness was not the issue. Again, 9 out of 10 people. The consideration, though, we saw a 64% drop from people that knew about us to those that would even consider coming here. And I think that that was really the amplification of Anaheim's story and space that we really wanted to lean more into. And we took that one step further. And I think that a lot of the times we like to lean into the facts about our destination. It's a walkable city. It's a safe city. We have X number of hotel rooms, and all of those are true, right? And we're very fortunate for those things to be accurate about Anaheim specifically. But facts are going to inform, but feelings are going to move. So how do we get those event planners? How do we get those people that are, considering where to take that next big moment? How do we get them to understand everything that Anaheim has to offer? And we've been very methodical with that approach as well. And I think some of that comes down to us as an organization, knowing the nooks and crannies and the local businesses and the concierge teams at our hotels to be able to then, when we have sites and we have people come into Anaheim to come and experience it, they're completely blown away by it. And I can't tell you how many sites that I've been a part of where we take people around the city and they're like, I had no idea that this existed. And we're like, yeah, that's the point, right? And I think that those are the moments that have really helped us move the needle most recently. And it's a kudos to our team for just really kind of embracing that notion of how do we kind of show people the things that they don't know, because they already kind of know what they know. So we don't need to keep kind of beating that over the head.
Yeah, I think that's so well said. Especially when we were talking about site visits. I'm curious on your side of, is there a time where you've had a moment that kind of like the keyword you guys use is that unscripted moment? Have you had an experience where you've kind of taken them throughout the city in an unscripted way or a new rebranded way?
You all may or may not be familiar with the Comedy and Culinary Festival that we launched earlier this year. And so we called it Stand Up Chow Down, an Anaheim experience. It's going to be taking place every year over April Fool's weekend. And we brought in, so we're partnering, we're part owners of the festival, but we're partnering with a company called Don't Tell Comedy and Ever Wonder Studios. And Ever Wonder Studios is run by a gentleman by the name of Doug DeLuca, incredible human being. He's also the executive producer of the Jimmy Kimmel Show. So we brought him and the Don't Tell Comedy team down, and we were kind of going throughout the city to all the various spots. And the various spots that we took them to were the unscripted places, right? Like we were taking them to breweries to see how could we pop up a comedy show in a brewery? How could we pop up a comedy show at an auto body shop? But the moment, so we took them over to a place called The Ranch. And The Ranch is this amazing steakhouse. It's kind of in a business park that you would never expect for this type of upscale steakhouse to be in. They source a lot of their ingredients from a local farm. But next to The Ranch, it's called The Saloon. And the owner of The Ranch created The Saloon because the only line dancing place back in the day in Anaheim had closed down, and his daughter loved line dancing. And so he opened up the saloon really as an homage to her to be able to have a place to do so. But there was obviously a community in Anaheim that was interested in that as well. And so we took these folks and Doug specifically into the saloon to go and say, like, this could be a really cool venue potentially for us to host a comedy show. And Doug walked in and was just completely blown away. He's like, this is insane. You all are taking me places that I had no idea, let alone a line dancing place inside of a business park. And I think that kind of exemplified what we were getting at, right? And ultimately, we launched this comedy festival this last year, and the one show that was at the auto body shop, you're literally listening to Craig Connon and Rosebud Baker. I mean, these headliner comedians, and there is a car on a lift right next to you, right? And you're just kind of like, yeah, that's Anaheim. Like, that's the grit and the fun and the culture and the blue collar nature of the city. And people gravitate towards that. They connect with it. It feels real and authentic. And we love it. So when you pair that up again with like the iconic nature of Disney, or, you know, the what OC Vibe is looking to build, and just the modernization of what that means, I think it's important for us to never lose a place like the Saloon or Don Churro's Churro Truck outside of the Anaheim marketplace. Like, those ultimately are also the lifeblood of the city as well.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's really critical. Again, it's like appealing to that emotional moment and also recognizing what your city is and your destination is, and not losing sight of that. It's something that, you know, we really champion when we are selling destinations to our clients, is uncovering the reality behind and what that really means, and those opportunities to engage and connect in different ways, in unexpected ways. I'd love to talk a little bit, just kind of going backwards, because I know, you know, we've been through a rebrand. We have done this exercise as Cohera. Obviously, we merged together two destination management companies and became what we are today. And I was heavily involved in the rebrand process. And I'd love to kind of peel back the onion, because we've talked about this briefly with our audience. But how did that all shape up for you? What did that process look like for you? And how did you really lead the charge? Again, kind of making sure that you picked the right partners, that you really were, you know, asking the tough questions, getting the right kind of feedback. Tell me a little bit about that process for you, Scott.
Yeah, totally. And this will go back to the Collider Lab angle as well. But we divided the work up into 3 different scopes, and we did it very intentionally with some different ideas in mind about who we wanted to help fill each scope of work. So first scope of work was all about strategic positioning, the research phase. Like, let's really make sure that we're getting into the root of what it is that we're looking to solve for. And then coming up with ultimately what is the angle that we're going to be leaning into as our brand, right? As that umbrella for the foreseeable future. The second phase of that was the creative. That's the fun stuff. That's the things that everybody wants to see, what colors and logos and all those nuances. And then the third piece was, all right, how do you bring the brand to life? What's the media behind it? What's the activation, the experiential? In the DMO world, right? Like, I think it's safe to say that some of it is a rinse and repeat, right? Like, I would argue that if you go to any 5 DMO websites and you cover up the logo, I mean, you could pick beach towns, you could pick mountain resort, whatever it is. If you cover up the logo, you're going to get a gorgeous drone shot. You're going to get sunrises, sunsets, families eating along a long wooden table saying, come discover the hidden gem, right? Like, it becomes a little bit of a rinse and repeat. And what we were really looking to do was differentiate ourselves and evolving Anaheim into more of a lifestyle brand. And I would get the question during the process asked a lot, like, what do you mean, like a destination as a lifestyle brand? And I would always use this example, and it's a shout out to one of my counterparts who at the time was leading Discover Puerto Rico, Leah Chandler, who's now the CMO for Brand USA. But Leah developed this just incredibly genius angle for Puerto Rico to it was a feeling that people were able to carry with them when they weren't in the destination. They had brand collaborations with Van Leeuwen ice cream on a pina colada flavor. So you're sitting on your sofa eating a pint of ice cream, eating pina colada, and you're like, dang, this tastes really good. You look at it and you're like,
Tastes good
is
if
this
you're
what
in
it
Puerto Rico, right?
yeah, exactly, right. And you know, they developed a shade of orange, and everyone's like, "Why are you developing a shade of orange?" And they called it Puerto Rico Sunshine. Well, people are putting Puerto Rico Sunshine paint in their house. They had a spot in New York City Fashion Week with the models dressed in orange, and it became something that transcended a place and became something that people could carry with them. And so that was ultimately what we were looking to do. But we knew to accomplish that, we needed to find the right agency balance, right? And a lot of that was bringing in some agency partners that were not travel endemic, but then also mirroring and marrying that up with some folks who are travel endemic. And the way that we ended up approaching it, we had 17 agencies participate throughout the RFP process. So it was a super robust lineup of folks, tremendous talent across the board. We chose Collider for that first scope of work. They're based in Santa Ana. They kind of understand Orange County. They had done some pro bono work with the Anaheim School District. So it felt like there was a local angle to them, that they understood the research that they were about to dive into. But their methodology, they're run by a gentleman by the name of Ken Munch. And Ken Munch was the CMO for Taco Bell. And he, if you've heard of Liv Moss, that was Ken.
Yeah.
If you're familiar with the Hotel Takeover in Palm Springs, that's Ken. Ken's a genius and a legend in marketing in general. And they had their thesis, so to speak, is that any good brand checks off the boxes of relevancy, ease, and distinctiveness. They call it red marketing. That that thesis and that methodology had never been applied to the travel sector before. It had really been primarily focused on QSR, other projects that Ken and his team had been a part of, but we were kind of the case study, if you will, for how that applied to travel. So we brought them in for that piece. They synced us up with an agency by the name of Row. And Row, again, had never worked in the travel space. And everyone's like, are you good with that? I'm like, yes, like that's what we're going for. And then the third piece, we brought in Miles Partnership. And if you're familiar with Miles, they're best in the biz for the travel space. They work with everybody from Brand USA to Visit California to Visit Florida, like that worldwide. They work over in the UK. And so for us, they brought that buying power, that expertise on how do we activate the brand to the right audience. So it became this really kind of fun synergy between all three. They to say that they play nice in the sandbox is putting it lightly. They've become fast friends across all three agencies. And so that was kind of the theory behind it, right? Like, how do we pair these agency partners that each have their own level of expertise? It helps us hopefully try to transcend what our category use case ultimately has been, but we're still activating it to the folks that are looking to travel ultimately to Anaheim. So that's big picture. Happy to dive deeper into any aspect of that, but that was kind of the methodology behind it.
Well, I think it's hypercritical that you don't just talk to people within your space. I think that's such a key thing, and something that um, we really wanted to emphasize in our process too. Is it's easy to go to a creative agency that only works with destination management companies or tourism and travel, but you're not going to get a full, real different perspective if that's the only voice that you have in the room. So I think that's really key. I want to talk a little. We just had a really great conversation recently with the head of global experiential at Canva. And one of the things he said to me that I thought was really interesting was, how do you bring the URL to IRL? So I'd like to talk a little about how you're now mobilizing this new brand in an experiential space. Because more and more, I think, we're seeing with our audiences that they want to have that tactile hands-on experience within the creative space that we're creating. So tell me a little bit about some of the experiential marketing campaigns that you've developed based upon this rebrand and what you're excited for.
Yeah, so I'll tell you too. So before the rebrand, I would say that we were kind of quietly testing this philosophy, so to speak, of, I think that anybody would say if you hear Visit Anaheim telling you to visit Anaheim, we're slightly biased in that, right? Like you're kind of like, yeah, duh, why would Visit Anaheim tell me otherwise? And so
Right.
we've really taken that approach to the next level on how do you kind of create the stage for then storytellers, natural, authentic storytellers, to start to fill in, the gap to their trusted audience, right? And so part of that philosophy allowed for us to test before the rebrand, and I'll use our Imagine Agency campaign as the example, where it was we were looking to have folks tell the Anaheim story that have some sort of real, authentic connection back to the destination. So whether that's our influencers, our content creators, celebrity partnerships, brand collaborations, we want there to be some sort of natural tie back that allows for them to feel authentically like our destination. And Imagine Agency was a great example of that. Or long story short, we created the first ever kid-run travel agency. We called the kids the Imagine Agents. The head of Imagine Agency was Tia Mowry. She was kind of the hero of the campaign, and she herself would tell you that her story started in Anaheim. Her family couldn't afford to move to LA, so they moved to Anaheim. They would drive up to LA for all of the auditions that her and her sister ultimately ended up nailing. But then two of her kids were the Imagine Agents. We had the daughter of a Duck star as one of the Imagine Agents. If you're familiar with Heather and Tarek El Moussa, their son was an Imagine Agent. And these kids ultimately were telling and building out bookable itineraries that people could actually tangibly book through one of our travel providers. So we were able to put a tangible, functional result alongside this really clever kind of creative genius idea that our VP of Communications, Lindsay Swanson, came up with. So that kind of gave us the backdrop over like, yeah, this works, right? Like we get a ton of earned media out of it, but we also can create this bookable component along with it. So now fast forward to the rebrand, we're not working with celebrities for celebrity's sake. We're not working with brands and different collabs for the sake of it, but we're looking for that real, authentic connection back. So really over the next, and the first of these will launch in October. We're working with, and I'll leave a little bit of mystique behind it, but we're working with a luxury streetwear company brand that's based in Orange County, born and bred in Orange County. And we're going to be working with them on a merchandise collection that really kind of shows the different chapters or eras of Anaheim. And so there's a tangible product that one of the areas that we scored lighter on in the research was what we call cultural and social relevancy. So summarize it, a lot of people don't view Anaheim as cool, right? So how do you change that notion and start to really kind of put that on the map for people? And part of that is obviously with a merchandiser and a luxury streetwear brand that kind of best exemplifies it. So number one, it helps to serve that purpose, but it also is from a storytelling angle and leaning into being able to have each one of these products and pieces of merchandise tell a different chapter of Anaheim's story. So leaning into the lowrider community, leaning into the sports community, leaning into the Googie architecture era of Anaheim. And so that starts to help tell the story that I've been sharing with you guys today on our conversation over like the unexpected parts of Anaheim outside of what everybody kind of comes to know us for, and doing that through the lens of a streetwear brand that already has a trusted audience that we're able to kind of help tap into.
I love that. Well, we appreciate the breadcrumbs. I know you can't unveil the whole thing, so we'll have to stay tuned.
Getting the teaser.
Getting the teaser, we always appreciate that.
Totally.
No, I think it's really I think it's also great too that you're continuing to build momentum in the ability for people to uncover what they want to uncover about your destination too. I think that's critical as well, is letting people choose their own adventure, right? And how they're going to explore and uncover a destination or an experience or really, anything that you're doing creatively. You want that kind of opportunity for people. So we have to do it because this is Event Planner Confessions. I hope you came prepared, Scott. I think we prepped you, which we didn't. Sorry, not sorry.
All good.
But as part of our show, we love to kind of hear a fun, interesting story, maybe something that happened that was just a crazy tale in your experience. And obviously from a marketing perspective and from events and experiential, you can dig into wherever you want to take it. But we'd love to hear from you if you have a fun confession to share with our audience.
Oh man, that is I was not prepared, but I will come up with something good for you. And I can actually tie this back to the rebrand, and I'll make this kind of full circle. Um, Through Collider's research, the majority of them are based here in Santa Ana, but they brought in one team member who's in New York, and she had never been to Anaheim ever before. And so they brought her in. Obviously, they wanted her perspective on walking the streets of Anaheim and talking to local business owners and the whole run of it. And so she was doing her due diligence and going around and doing her thing. And she actually went up to one of our hotel front desk staff members at a hotel that I will not name, and asked them what is there to do in Anaheim at night. And the front desk staff told them you should go somewhere else. And we were like, oh man, like that is a gut punch. Like if there ever was one for somebody who is living and breathing our destination. And my confession to that would be that they are they're very wrong in that. But B, we went back to that hotel and we're like, hey, guys, like that is not that is not the message that we are leaning into here. There's plenty to do at night, but that ultimately has lent us to really working much more in tandem with our hotel community to provide this more uniform, consistent message to visitors as they come in, so that we don't find ourselves in a position like that one again. So if that fits the
Oh
bill,
man.
That does fit the bill.
Yeah, no,
I
that
mean,
fits.
okay.
I think so. I mean, I think you've all experienced it before. You know, your hotel partners, you bring them along to the journey. So I'm glad you were able to have a teachable moment to say, hey,
Totally.
there's plenty to do in Anaheim after dark. Here's some suggestions. Let's unify on this message.
100%. 100%. Yeah, 100%.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Scott. I know Sam and I, we love having these conversations,
Yeah.
especially again on the heels of our rebrand, kind of uncovering a little bit of your story. And we're going to have to stay tuned on this incredible streetwear collaboration. So
I know, I
any
can't
other
wait.
sneak peeks you want to give us off camera, we appreciate that. But either way, we'll tune in.
We will make sure that we send you guys a nice goodie bag with them once we launch, and we'll have to do this again. So no, I
Love
appreciate
it.
the
Awesome.
conversation.
We love some swag.
There you go.
Thanks so much, Scott. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Scott.
Likewise. Thanks again.